Hello, everyone. The following is a part of a conversation that I had with Janet Alook. She's sister to Elaine Alook, who has been missing since 2004. Janet agreed to share a part of our conversation to listeners as a way to educate and to spread awareness. Just a content warning. Our conversation includes discussions of residential school, child apprehension, and of course, the experiences of missing a loved one. I started off by thanking Janet for agreeing to share something that continues to affect her and her family a lot. I started off by reminding Janet of a post that she shared to Facebook that really stuck with me. It put everything into perspective of how many systems connect together that continue to culminate in the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people. The Indian Act, the residential school system, the child welfare system, intergenerational trauma, all of which Janet has experienced as a residential school survivor herself. Please take care in listening. For when the unmarked graves were discovered in Kamloops, I remember you shared a post about you're a residential school survivor, and so are your parents. And then you said, but it didn't stop there.
No.
Your sister went missing.
No. Yeah, it just keeps, whatever happens to a First Nation woman in a country, it seems to affect me a lot.
Yeah, it just...
Like, with the residential school taken away, see my mom cry when they were being taken away, and they were taken away from their parents, and both my parents, and and then from there, when we got back home, we went to the day school, and then to the boarding school, and then now, like, missing and murdered. Like, everything that affects an Indigenous woman seems to affect my family. And we're just, we're never raised on a reserve. We're off reserve. So it's just like a lady. And then, then there's this foster care, which is another example of a residential school.
Yeah.
And instead of helping families to enhance their family life, give them programs or, upgrading life skills, whatever. They hire each lawyer, even for the child. They hire lawyers. And instead of spending all that money on these lawyers, they should be trying to, bring the families together. Spend money on that. Or even, for example, ask if the Kokums could look after them or family before they take them out of the family circle.
Yeah.
There's because to me, no matter, like, I'm a firm believer that no matter how hard life is, a child needs his parents, a mother and a father.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're lost.
Yeah.
And I give you an example with my nephew. I'll never forget the day when he called. My mom was very sick in Raklavich in a hospital.
Mm.
He said, and he was only 6, he said, Lukum, they're taking me away. Social services are taking me away.
Mm.
My mom was so sick, she couldn't do anything, and I was there. And I told Max, I said, let me know what's happening. He had his own, they had given him a lawyer.
Mm.
The social services gave him a lawyer. They took him away from his dad because he was single father, Indigenous man. Didn't think he's capable to raise children.
Oh my goodness.
Instead of helping him, and he got kicked out from his girlfriend in Christmas, and he had no place to live with a baby and 6-year-old. They took the kids away from him.
Oh, those poor kids.
No, that's just up to this date. He just went bizarre.
Really?
He never seen his kid, his son.
Oh my
Still
goodness.
today.
Really? Still today?
Yeah, still today. I haven't, I seen a glimpse of my nephew once since he was 15, when I had his uncle on the other side threatened me if I ever come to the door, he was going to do something. So, I haven't seen him since then. My youngest brother, haven't seen him either. So this is another for residential school.
Yeah.
It's the same,
Yeah.
the
effects
it has, and disagree with the family cycle, the love, everything. Yeah. So I'm helping my brother, trying to take upgrading or trying to get him on the right path, to have a good life. They just disseminated his whole life.
Janet goes on to share a little bit about her parents' experiences at residential school.
My mom speaks only Cree. She went up to grade 3 in a mission residential school. But when they figured she was a Métis, they thought she was a Métis because of her last name, Guaju. They only put her to grade 3 and then later worked that whole season on a grade 3 to in a kitchen for $1 a day.
Oh my goodness. So they took her out of school. Wow.
Put her in the kitchen to work. Well, yeah, that's how, so was he never lose sight of us.
And your dad too, he went to the same school?
Yeah, I went to the residential school in Port Vermilion there, and same thing. He went up to grade 7, and he went up and he was an altar boy, and he really tensed up when he ever talks about residential school. Things happen, and he always said, if I ran into that priest again, I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But never can I say, but he said, I don't know what would happen.
Oh my goodness.
And he had horror stories about, you never talk about it much.
Yeah.
So I could just never question him about it because he get tensed up. Yeah, so it must have been awful. Yeah,
that is very common. A lot of people just don't talk, especially to family, because I think it hurts to say out loud.
Yeah.
Janet shares a little bit about what it was like growing up for her and her family under the Indian Act.
But I remember, growing up as a child myself, my parents were scared to take us to town because there's curfew. And because we're First Nations, you're only allowed to go to store for buy groceries, but we weren't allowed to go. If we were caught in a liquor store, not anything, or down the street, we'd get picked up. And those, they were fear. Indigenous people lived fear in this country for a long time. And then when you see, my mom wouldn't let us go play with other kids because she was scared to lose us.
Oh my goodness.
The agents would be at the door. And if you missed 3 days of school, they would take you away.
Oh my goodness. Indian agents, you said, eh?
Yeah, we had Indian agents up north, yeah. Yeah. And I remember then how, we would have a canopy over the truck and a mattress, and we'd be all under a blanket when we go down because we want North and pure Indian agents to come. That was the time, a period, until in 1960s, 1965, when all of a sudden we got dispensed to reserves. And my father said, why would I want to live on a muskeg?
Right.
It was a land where nothing could grow.
Right.
We would have cattle. We would ride horses to feed the cattle on a reserve. Oh. My father made a fence there. And that's the kind of land we were given to us. Nobody could farm because it was too acidic and couldn't grow anything. And poor people that lived on that reserve was unbelievable. So Dad bought his own land, from a farmer in the log coast. We there with a wood stove, oil stove, we had all my life. I went through all these stages of heating up the house, from a canvas tent to a wood stove, from a wood stove to oil stove, then propane stove, furnace, and gas furnace. It's pretty awful what happened to my younger sister, but she's gone, and it's something that we try and live with and remember, and we still don't talk about it much because wasn't very good experience, and all my went downhill because of that, and that's why I focused on going back to school after I retired, because I felt I was being robbed of a proper education to achieve what I wanted to. Always get into business and stuff like that. So I took the opportunity to go back and do my upgrading and did my business, diploma. So I felt I needed back to achieve that because, it's self-reliance, right? Feel good.
Yeah.
Everything that bad happened.
Yeah.
It's nice being resilient and you pursue for higher education. I'm a firm believer in that. So is my dad. My dad, my father had wanted all of us to get good education and pursue, have a good career in mind, right? So, and my mom was like that. She always said, if they had given me more education, because her too felt she was being robbed from getting proper, being put in the kitchen for $1 a day. I went up to grade 3. She said, if I had my high school, I would be a doctor today.
Wow.
And it's just for her to say that because my both grandfathers were healing, they were people people go to, right? And she said, I would be a doctor today. And she always mentioned that, how if she had proper education, in the country, she would be a doctor. I see that still today. A lot of people are not getting proper education, or being directed the right direction to pursue higher education or establish themselves in a life in a good way.
Yeah.
Even when I went to school in Grand Prairie, I would be walking down the street and people would call me down. But they literally would, young people, like young guys and all that, they would literally yell at me and swear at me. And I wouldn't even know them. Yeah, in that period of time, it was really weird. The diversity wasn't there,
Yeah.
And there's a big influx of new, Canadians coming from Europe and all that. All of a sudden, there's this diversity. Well, you got to understand your culture. Well, what about our indigenous culture? Nobody understood us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they
didn't
care. They don't try and proceed to see, when you think about missing and murder, like you said, disposed or just, what are we? We're people too, right?
Janet goes on to talk about her experiences with the various educational systems available to her.
And then when you were little, you had to go to, plus you went to Indian day school. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I went to right after I came back from residential school. They put us in a day school, right? Same thing. You know, it was and they converted to changed the name. That's about it. But that's provincial. Instead of federal, for that year, I think they give the legislation to the provinces.
Oh yeah.
So that affected the day school. It's a province thing, and there's some that are like that. Yeah, because we were, like I said, living outside the reserve until late in, until we're up in high school. Then we went to the boarding school. My younger sister, the rest stayed around with my parents.
That's Louise. You were talking.
Yeah.
Louise. Yeah.
Yeah, we stayed in a boarding school, and that was another horrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
Oh.
But so, and my younger sisters, I had Lorraine, Noella, Elaine. They were mostly with my folks and my brother and my other brothers, siblings. They were with my parents. They never went anywhere. Yeah, so they stayed at the farm and worked from there. That's when we start changing things, right? Yeah.
Okay, and then you had to eventually move to Fort McKay, like when your parents got older.
Yeah, they started. We went to school near my Louise. We went to taking us to Grand Prairie for finishing our high school. I got robbed by every pursuer in high school, and so does the students. Now, today, sometimes when I look at homelessness and all the people wandering around that are close to my age, I thought, well, they got robbed. They were treated properly.
Yeah.
They got by, got the proper schooling and lifestyles. Now they're in the streets.
Yeah. Yeah, and just that it contributes to this crisis of violence we have because, imagine you're Indigenous woman on the streets. There's we're just disappearing and no one's paying attention. Well, we should be because we had that national inquiry in 2019, but I was just trying to do research on if there's an action plan or if we're making any progress, and there's barely anything. It just is sitting on a shelf somewhere collecting dust, like all of that work that went into it.
Janet goes on to explain her experience with the investigation on her sister's disappearance.
I remember asking you, like, when I saw you on that episode Taken, when did you do that? And you said you were trying to raise awareness. And that was about, what, 6 years ago when it came out? Yeah. I just remember like seeing you there in the name, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, that like you're sitting there and your sister's missing and it's been so long. And then I remember looking at the episode, and it says they interviewed the prime. I don't know if he was a police detective, but he said, oh, they did 4 searches. They had dogs, they had radar, and yeah, if anything comes up, we'll let you know. And it kind of made it portrayed that they were doing work. But then I talked to you and you said, well, they didn't even get the date right. Well, you even said that on the episode too.
But if they don't have the date right.
Jeez.
when you look at the poster, I got a poster at, and yeah, I got a poster at home. And the poster states that even the cast on her right arm, that she was having a cast,
Yeah.
she got rid of that cast. She didn't have it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they said
You
she
know,
had a cast.
they have a cast on her, and I said, well, she didn't have a cast when she phoned me because she was looking for some kind of bandage to, because she's got tired of the cast. And I said, well, come here and spend the weekend. And when she phoned me, it was on the 12th. I'll never forget that, May 12th. They had the posters at May 11th. So, you know, when my son, my youngest son, handed me the phone, and I had one last night. So I can look at the schedule after 5 years, 6 years ago, like, you know, to confirm that I was still working one more night to do, because I had that. Yes, I had one more night to go, and it was the 12th. So, but the poster said the 11th. So, and then when she called me, she said, oh, sister, I'm just passing your place. And I said, well, stop by. She said, well, I'm in a rush. And I said, well, come this weekend. We'll have sister talk, you know, spend the weekend with me. And then she said, okay, I will. That was the last time I heard of her. So who was this fellow that drove her down? Yeah. That's my place. I keep bringing that up to the RCMP, and they never came back to me. Who was it that gave her the ride? And then there was the latest one, just like last year, we brought it up again. There was my nephew that, you know, Auntie, and this was like, you know, he said, this lady years ago, with his ex-girlfriend, or in Anzac, this off Fort McMurray, there, this waitress came up to me and said, oh, you're Elaine's nephew. Elaine's your aunt. And Michael said, yeah. He said, I know what happened to her. I was with her. Oh my goodness. And even that, we brought it up to the RCMP, and nothing. They didn't even say anything. He said, well, what happened? And then I said, well, what happened? He said, the lady said her and Elaine, there was a man-made lake in Fort McMurray. Yeah. We're sitting there, you know, taking whatever drugs, and there was a drug dealer there. And this is where the rich people live in at that time in Fort McMurray. And that man-made lake, they were there, and they got some from this dealer that lives close by. And Elaine's, this lady said she fell, and that was it. She took that drug and she fell over, and that was it. She was hemorrhaging. And so the lady said, well, I don't know what happened. She said, I didn't know what to do and all that, so I went out to the dealer, and we got a shovel, and we buried her there. What? No, something like that. Like, you know, and I said, I told the same thing to the RCMP, nothing. And to this day, not even, I don't even know if they interviewed. Never met this lady ever, because at that point my sister Louise had moved to Fort Vermilion, and so, and he only came to introduce his girlfriend to my mom, you know, and Anzac, and this is what happened. And so it's somebody Elaine had grew up with and went to school with in Fort McMurray. And that's what puzzles me, is why are they not checking into that story? Do you feel that do you have a contact, like right now, like that? No. There's no one that you feel that you could even keep in touch with and talk to? I always wonder about that, because I don't understand all that either. Usually, like,
you would have a main investigator, the case is open, and they would be keeping you updating, your family updating on what's been happening.
Mm-hmm. Nobody, not one, even my mother, I was never being updated. And finally, when she passed on, she said, well, they never found her, didn't they? And I said, I know, Mom, they never found her. They never found her. And she said, well, maybe she's still alive. Was her last words.
Mm-hmm.
But then, she's, even to her, she's still hopeful, but nobody ever talked to her. Like, what are you supposed to think?
Yeah.
That's what I, like with this RCMP, I don't know, are they behind it? Why is it, like, when you think about the way they treat Indigenous people, they struck them, they beat them, they kicked them, even the women.
Yeah.
Like, they got respect for women. And are they behind this? Are they behind, or then just, like I said, are they so behind the Hells Angels? Are they behind this too? Because nobody talks about that organized crime.
Yeah.
Are they behind this? These are, I remember my sister Louise went up there for McMurray, checking up on trying to find information herself. And some guy in a bar told her that you better be disappearing or you're going to end up like your sister.
Oh, that's so scary.
I know. So that scared, but when she told me that, it scares me to go ask questions. And then, when somebody told that to her and told her to leave, otherwise it scares me. Even like I'm going there May 2nd to 4th for this healing in Fort McKay.
Yeah.
There's a couple other girls there close to that period that disappeared and nobody knows.
Really?
And a lot of them are, I mean, just because a person goes out once, they're labeled pretty bad, or, I need a break from being a single mother, you need a break to go out and you get caught and, some kind of bad ordeal, but that doesn't mean you're a high-risk liver.
Oh, I know. That labeling is horrible.
She had kids, she had sons to raise.
Janet goes on to explain that her sister was being abused and she needed supports.
My little baby sister, I remember at Christmas, she was trying to go to school. She wanted to go to school to do upgrading. And the father of her children wouldn't even help her pay her rent and all that. And she was short and help her through to get her education and all that. Give her time to do homework and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He was always mean, right? He'd spend that Christmas a lot of money on his tattoos, but wouldn't give her any rent money or food for the kids.
Yeah.
She ended up going to this abuse safe home for women and end up not doing good in school.
Mm-hmm.
So the abuse she was getting. There's a lot of Native women like that out there that not getting the support they need.
Yeah, I think, there's so many, like even I think of human trafficking is a big, it's like this organized system, and it's like we don't even talk about it enough, and they're targeting vulnerable people. That's who they target, and it happens to be Indigenous women and girls.
Well, the thing too is it's not just in Canada, it's in downstates here too. It's a big right that, there's a lot of Indigenous girls missing every year.
Oh.
A lot. There need to be kind of a system where, numbers or safety numbers.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be put by yourself anywhere. It's not safe. Corner store. And even mail, same thing. it's not safe to go by yourself anymore. You need, somebody to go with, numbers.
Yeah.
Safety in numbers. It should be posted everywhere. Don't go even to the corner store. When I go to Edmonton and the cities, even in Calgary, and I see Indigenous girls walking by themselves, I said, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
That's always behind my mind. So, it should be with somebody. Everything that affected from residential school, day school to boarding school to foster care, even to try and pursue a higher education. I'm pretty resilient, and I stick to it. I don't let anybody break my spirit. I have learned that from residential school by not being told not to speak Cree and all this. I used to run home, and that's all I would speak with my mom's Cree, because nobody's going to tell me I can't speak my language.
Aww.
I know. My mom, same thing, right? So I used to leave our books in the porch, and I have this. Leave the books on the porch, speak home in Cree and learn stuff in Cree. Then I pick up my books in the morning and I go to That's how I did it.
Wow. And
because my grandparents, they all speak only Cree. My mom speaks Cree. My dad, well, that's all he'll speak is Cree at home. And saying, we won't change her. No, even though no matter where we live, our language is number one.
Do your younger siblings all speak Cree too?
Oh yes,
everyone.
The following is a part of our conversation where we're talking about caring forward culture. Janet talks about how her and her family love to hunt, the humor in Cree culture. We continue to pick medicines from the land. And she's looking forward to May 5th, which is Red Dress Day, as a way to honor and continue to spread awareness about her sister Elaine. Yeah, Indigenous humor. I love it. Everyone in my family really loves to laugh too. Always telling jokes.
That's how it is. And people would just laugh, and that's the thing, is it's just different on Indigenous humor and
yeah. I know, it makes you feel so good to have those big belly laughs. It's like a stress reliever.
Yeah. Well, laughing is a healing thing, right? You gotta laugh a lot, and it heals you. You gotta be happy. Yeah, it is. It's a lot, and berry picking, and
the land. And you mentioned you're going up north there for the 5th, and there's an event there. Is there a walk memorial?
Yes, there is. Well, Fort McKay is having a healing workshop, and there's healing cultural workshop from 2 to 4, and then on the 5th in Fort McMurray there's a walk.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna go there because that's where my little sister was last seen, and I'm hoping to get awareness and bring it up again. What's happening? It's going on 21 years. One day I still hunt for elk. I'm going to, I'm going to go hunt elk this fall. And every year we get our elk. And the thing I would want in this world is having people have cabins in a bush to go and rejuvenate, rethink, and go spend time. Because that's us Indigenous people, to go back and, go on traditional way up with the Mother Earth and just hunting and fishing and,
Yeah. For even like personal healing and remembering. Like I know for our family too, we don't tend to talk too much, but just being together, it's
Janet and I had a discussion on how we learned many cultural traditions, especially from Blackfoot elders here in Treaty 7.
like I never grew up smudging, but I learned that mainly at the Nikikon Center. And all of these traditions I learned a lot from Blackfoot elders actually.
Yeah, me too. Growing up, the only thing was my father only used fungus. We never really use sweetgrass or sage that much. Just fungus. Like the fungus, that's the birds. It grows by the rivers. Yeah.
So nice.
That's the only thing, and that was our medicine, and the thing that we used a lot is bird's fat.
Bird fat?
No, sap. Like, you know.
Sap. Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, that was our medicine.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
And growing up, we have a lot of that, and the fungus and Labrador tea,
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love the smell of Labrador.
and mint tea. That was and rat root. That was yeah.
Oh, good. I have lots of rat root to give to you. I was down home when was this? Yeah, I was at a funeral back home, October. So me and my friend, we went to go pick a bunch. So I have like quite a bit. I can give some to you, and it's good to chew on. It's good for arthritis, eh?
Yeah, it is.
When you describe your family, your dad, your mom, and everyone working together and speaking the language, it just sounds like so strong culturally.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, when you talk about resilience, you can see where it comes from.
Thank you for listening, everyone, and thank you again to Janet.